easier for women to relate to it too.
Yes.
Now, just to leave a little bit on your medical field, I'd like to get a little bit into the author field. Now, what made you decide to write your book?
I always enjoyed writing, and I was always an avid reader. I'd be at the library 3 times a week carrying out stacks of books up to my chin, and did the writing that I could through my earlier years. In college, I had the opportunity to edit and write the Yale Health Plan newsletter, which had a circulation of about 12,000. It went to the entire health plan for the university, so professors, students, graduate students. So that was a lot of fun. And then as I was in practice for some time, my patients asked me a lot of good questions, and when I explained the physiology or the biology of a woman's body and why I was recommending certain things to them to consider, they'd say, gee, where can I read more about what you're telling me? And certainly there were other books available on this topic, and they each were written from their own unique perspective. But to my thinking, none of them were taking the approach that my patients seemed to want more of. And I had many of these conversations in the practice over the years, so I decided to write something for them and for the women that I don't see, for women who would find this type of information helpful about how our bodies are changing and what researchers have found to explain these changes. So we still don't know the answer to every question. We still don't even know exactly what causes hot flashes, but we do know things that aggravate them or things that alleviate them. And there are other things that we've learned about the various aspects of women's health. And I thought if I could translate that from the medical language into language that an educated, interested woman would understand and enjoy without boring the people who know some medicine and losing people who don't know the terms, I thought that would be helpful to a lot of women.
Yeah. Now, I see the book is published by Johns Hopkins Press Health Book. Being an author myself, this is just what I came to conclusion of when I looked at this. I said, well, I bet you Julia didn't have as much problems getting her book published being a doctor than I did as somebody starting out. But can you give us listeners an idea of what roadblocks you yourself hit? I mean, did you have any when you were writing this with rejection letters?
Absolutely. When I first thought of writing this, I found I was too busy with my practice and my family, and so I had to put it on hold. And when I did feel that my children were a little older and my practice was a little more established and I felt I could devote the time to it, at that point, other people had put out some menopause books, and so there was much more competition.
Yeah.
And the first publishers that my agent approached were very unreceptive. They said, well, you're not an actress. And people want to hear from actresses, I suppose, and they're very appealing. They look good on the cover, and so I didn't have that calling card. And at the time, my university affiliations were not active. While I had trained in these wonderful places where I learned so much and had taught there in my earlier job, when I went into private practice, those connections were not active at that time, although they are reactivated now, and I'm fortunate enough to be teaching again both in Providence at with the GYN Oncology Fellows at Brown University, and I'm also back teaching some at Mass General in the Harvard system. But at the time I wasn't doing that, so they basically said, you're not a professor of medicine and you're not an actress, so why should we listen to you? And they weren't very receptive, and they also felt that the books that were on the market were covering the topic more than adequately. And when I tried to clarify that, no, this was really a different approach, they were not receptive. And they would say things like, well, you haven't discovered a cure for hot flashes and you haven't done anything really unique, so we don't think that this is really going to add anything. So that produced over half a dozen rejection letters from the major publishers. And then the agent that I was working with said, I think you should look at an academic press. And so when Johns Hopkins University Press first looked at it, they were receptive, and they had a board that looks at these things, and they were receptive. But I did not consider them because they had just put out a book a few years prior entitled "The Only Book You'll Ever Need for Menopause."
Oh.
So I thought, well, if they just put that out, then certainly they wouldn't want my book. But they were discerning, and they felt that this book was different enough, and they felt it would add something. So I was fortunate to have them as a publisher.
That's what I find with an author. It's so difficult. Like I do my memoirs, and a lot of people say, oh, that's just for family. But any book, when you're trying to go to a publisher, what readers don't realize is you have to try and prove, even though there's 100,000 books out like yours, why is my book different? And it even makes you stop and think, well, why is it different? You know what I mean? It's a very hard process for somebody that's coming to that. Now, before we forget, I'd like to at least for you to tell people where they can get your book, where they can buy it.
Locally, the book is available at Baker Books, and it's also available on Amazon, and it's available through Barnes & Noble online.
I'll tell you another place it's available, because I went for coffee at Something's Brewing.
Oh yes,
in Lakeville.
and thank you. It is available at Something's
Brewing. I'm having coffee with another author, and I'm looking over at the bookshelf, and I went,
yes, thank you.
There's Julia's book.
It
So
is. It's available at Something Brewing, and
Yeah.
it's also available in Taunton at Annie's Bookstop and Read More.
I've been there, yes.
Read More and Annie's Bookstop in Taunton, and also at the Morton Hospital gift shop. And the Mass General gift shop, because I teach up there.
Yeah.
So those two gift
Yeah, that does help with a little pull with that. I've knocked on their doors, and I haven't got my books in there yet. So we have a few minutes left, but is there anything special you want the audience to know that you still want to talk about with the book or with your life, or in the publishing world, what you would tell somebody what you think they should do to go forward to keep getting to that publishing stage?
I think what we were just talking about is one of the big challenges that comes up early in the process is how is your book unique, whether it's the perspective or how you cover it. I think one of the things I wanted to do too is, in addition to providing a resource for my patients and the other women that I won't see, I wanted to provide a resource for colleagues in medicine who may not be menopause specialists or may know something but want to have a resource. So I actually targeted it on 2 levels. So I have 2 levels of resources in there. I have websites that are accessible to women, are geared to the public on all these special areas: sleep, heart disease, and so forth, hormones, natural remedies. And then I have the technical references for colleagues in the back. So if someone goes to their physician and says, I read this, and they say, well, what the heck is she talking about? They say, well, here, it's right here. So there are both technical references like the New England Journal or North American Menopause Society literature or American College of OBGYN literature. All those technical references are cited in the back. And then the general references, including books I found helpful or my patients found helpful, or websites that we found helpful, are at the end of each chapter. So if you read something that I write and then you say, well, gee, I wonder if that still will be up to date next year, you could go and look at the websites that are cited at the end of the chapter that would have the updates there.
That's good. Well, like I said, for any listeners, please go into the stores and look for Menopause Matters. You'll be very surprised what's in this book, more than that you think it would be. I mean, she gives you a little taste of it on the synopsis of the back of the book. And I want to thank you very much, Julia, for coming. I'd like to give a little plug to Authors Without Borders before we end. Now, this is the first time that we're offering a holiday party for writers. And it's not a workshop, it's just, we've had so many people at our book signings, festivals that we go to, they say, we'd love to have a social hour. Website, which is www.awb6.com. If you have any other friends that are writing or are authors, we really hope that you join us. It's our first event putting something like this on, and we'd love everybody to come. That way, like just me interviewing Julia, you get to know the roads that everybody goes down to get to that publishing world. And thank you very much for tuning in, And I hope you tune in again. And by next month, we'll have one of our other authors interviewing another person. Thank you very much.